got on the call with me, Jose, Semen, and Hassan. Everybody say hi.
Hello.
So it's really, really good to see you guys again. So I want to get started on this discussion about, what are customer journeys and how do they actually fit in to our business model? And we've got a really important question that we want to go over, which is, why is storytelling important? We touched on this very briefly last week, Jose, and you're the one that brought it up. Why is storytelling, just in a general sense, why is storytelling important for companies to do?
Well, because our customers are human, and we love stories. People like stories. It even if you're selling a product, if you're a big company, anything that humanizes your product, your service, people identify with that. And a bottom line, whether you are negotiating, whether you're selling, whatever you're doing, you're dealing with people, and it just resonates with people when they hear a story, and especially when it's a compelling story, and maybe it's a humorous story. There's been studies that show that like the best TED Talks have the ones that have several attributes. One of them is laughter. It's a big component when you look at the transcripts. There's laughter in the transcript, and those have millions of views. So stories are important.
Now, something that I hear from feedback that I've gotten from a lot of entrepreneurs, and I want to wonder how you deal with it, is that many times they say, but you know what? I'm not in a consumer market. I'm not selling to the end users. My customers are businesses, not people, right? What would you say to that?
Mm-hmm. Well, you're selling to a business. You're going to sell to a somebody within the company that you're selling to. You might have to make a presentation to them, and you're going to be dealing with people. It's as simple as that. We're not yet to the point where AI is so good that we're just selling to some kind of bot that you can negotiate with.
Right, and I think that's something that's a really important lesson. That's a very important lesson that I learned, later than I think I should have, which is that when you're selling to organizations, you're not really selling to the abstract idea of an organization. The ones that actually make the decisions are the people in that organization who have the authority, who have the decision-making power. So how now storytelling, you mentioned very briefly that it's important, that it engages audiences. Now, what's the connection between storytelling and more specifically customer journeys?
Mm-hmm. Well, so when a customer journey, let's say the basic exercise of doing it in-house with your team is you're going to have to come up with some kind of path or trajectory, or the customer journey. What is happening? And if you can build a good story even to yourself and your team, and everybody's really buys into this, then of course when you sell it to your customer, they will be able to see that you have become invested in this concept. Your team is also has bought into this idea, and therefore it just lends more credence to whatever it is you're proposing to do. People who are passionate, when they present a story, and a story here we're talking about like a customer journey. How is my customer making decisions? How is my customer going to use my product? When there is a certain passion to that story by you, the startup, the company that's looking to sell something, that will be perceived favorably, and by the person who you are trying to convince.
Right. I think that's true. And I think something that you mentioned that is important is that many times when we are trying to propose something new, we start with an idea. And the best way, the natural tendency that people have for presenting ideas to talk about the product and talk about the technology. And I think that what we are proposing and what we want for people to think is to think about that product from the perspective of a customer, and that's where this storytelling and customer journey comes in. So the very simple, um, the very, very basic customer journey can be broken down into these three steps: before, during, and after, right? Um, and when you're trying to pitch an idea, again, you want to think not just what is the product that I'm trying to build or that I'm trying to propose, but when it comes to the actual person who will buy the product, what are these basic elements? What's happening before they use our product? What is happening while they are using the product? And what is happening after we use this product? So, Hesan, Semin, we've actually done this exercise with a lot of entrepreneurs. Can you guys tell us just a little bit about what are your general thoughts in regarding this really, really simple scheme for, you know, a company's storytelling?
Well, the important, I mean, it's like what Jose mentioned. It's all about people. So a person is going to be behind it, and what many people focus on is the during part. They talk about how to use the product. This is how you use it. Yeah, that's great, but actually there is a whole, right now it's a journey, right? Before, what happens before people use the product, and that's really important for them to use it, because you have a situation before that for them to use it, and then what happens after. It's not just about using it, what happens after using it. So for instance, say I bought a computer. Yeah, I can use a computer. There's like a better processor, there's good RAM, but what happens after? Do you get empowered? Do you get your job done faster? And what's the problem before? What is the customer facing? So what is their problem? Is there, are they using a computer because they feel that they have little RAM capabilities? I bet not. There is a specific problem behind that. So understanding and communicating with the before and after in mind, I think is really important.
Right. Hesan, you're mute. There we go.
Yeah. I'm doing it again. So, like Samin said, people tend to think about during part a lot, and what we found out was, like, when we talk about impact of your product or business, then you should focus on your storytelling after your customer using it, so they have a good impression about your service, and then your customers and go out to tell people how good it was. It's literally inbound marketing, and then they are coming back to your cycle, and then they are going to spread your stories. So that is a really good and amazing and beautiful story for your business, right? So that's why I think we are telling people to focus more on after and during part to have a story about your business.
Right. So thanks. And I think that what happens when you consider these three elements is that it also allows you to reimagine your business model. And there's a big difference between presenting a product idea and presenting an actual business idea. And when you only think about the during part, when you only think about the product, well, then your business model is simple. We're going to build the product, we're going to sell the product, we're going to make money. But once you think that you've also got to consider the before and after stage, now you also have to consider what are the activities that we have to do to engage with the customers before they are, you know, using the product. What do we need to do while they are using the product, and how do we need, what are the activities and what are the resources that we need to move to ensure that after the product is used, that they are actually successful in the goals that they wanted to achieve. So this here is the customer, the value proposition canvas. And I've also noticed that sometimes people have a little bit of a challenge thinking about how to fill this in. And the way I like to think about it is that, you know, the pains, those are the things that happen before. What is the problem that I currently have? Then the jobs, the customer jobs, that is what are they doing during the product use? What needs to happen literally as they are using the product that they need to get done? And then the gains, what is it that they have achieved after the fact? So these three pains, gains, and customer jobs, it really helps to think about them linearly throughout that customer journey. Now, before, during, and after could be fully developed into, Jose, how many steps do you think? What's like the most complicated customer journey map that you've seen?
Ooh, let me see. Probably related to an autonomous vehicle, and to how do you interact with pedestrians and others when you have an autonomous vehicle. There's a lot involved in that. And so, where I was approaching it in one of my previous jobs, was approaching it from the side of, okay, what kind of signaling do we have to provide? Just the signaling. Like, what color is the car going to have? The lights of the car going to have? They're going to tell it, the people on the street, this is an autonomous vehicle. So, you have the pains, which is like, people don't recognize as an autonomous vehicle. People are afraid possibly of autonomous vehicles. You have to satisfy regulations, rules and regulations. There's a lot of things that you have to keep doing. So you have a lot of customer jobs you have to do. And part of the central job is to provide a safe, number one, a safe, but also appealing solution. Okay, you have to do, and there's many others. And then what are the gains of that? Well, if you do your job really, really well, then you have a product that people like, that people buy, that becomes more and more used, that becomes a standard. And so there you go. Now, of course, this is a big simplification of a big discussion. And then the way to look at this value proposition canvas, which is available online on strategizer.com, there at the bottom of the page, and there's a lot of material on this, is think of your customer as the circle on the right side, and then think of yourself as the square on the other side. And you're basically looking at an analogous situation on your side. How do you solve those pains for the customer? How do you increase the gains of the customer? And what are the products and services you provide? That's your value right there. What is that you provide that helps the job that the customer is doing to go more smoothly, to be more successful?
Right. And so each of these I think that what you said is really, really right. And it really helps for startups when they understand things from their customer's perspective. It helps them to focus on doing things within their company that actually add customer value. Because when otherwise we just start imagining a lot of things, right?
Yeah. You can guess a lot. You can guess all you want, but the best thing you can do is to go ask customers, to go ask automakers, and so on.
And the problem when you don't ask the customers, when you guess a lot, is that that guessing becomes activities, things that you are building, things that you are doing, and you can end up with a very over-engineered product that doesn't fit your market, and ends up being too costly and too late. So I think that all of these can be broken down into multiple parts. What I have here is a template from HubSpot. So when you think about before, during, and after, you can actually break them up into multiple components, into multiple steps. And all of these templates, this one template for a journey map has 7 different templates for all of these, for you to be able to consider and to build out a map together with your team. What I want to do now is take a look at what we call the buyer's journey. So the buyer's journey is what would fit into the before part of our story, right? So our customer has a problem, and at some point they are going to want to solve this problem. And we can break that into these 3 stages. The awareness stage, are they aware that they have a problem? The consideration stage, what are the solutions that I am considering to be able to solve this problem? And the decision stage, which is there is one specific option that I like, and I want to, or there is one specific option that I would have to eventually buy, and you want to help them make sure that they decide that it's your product that is correct. And then on the rows, we have these 4 different questions that help us think about these 3 stages in a comprehensive way. What is the customer thinking or feeling? What is the customer's action? What or where is the buyer researching? And how will we move the buyer along his or her journey with us in mind? I think that last question is something that entrepreneurs miss. And I've seen a lot of companies that do great marketing for the awareness stage, but then they don't ask that last question, and they don't realize that all of that effort just helped their competitors, you know? Um, if you've got to make sure that you've got some kind of rails, you know, when you're thinking about this, so that when you drive customers through this, that you help them come to the decision that your product is the right one for them. So why don't we think about this slide with a specific example in mind, and we can go ahead and start filling in some of these squares. Jose, you had a suggestion of an industry that we should really be looking at right now. What was it?
I was thinking about the plant-based protein alternatives, so meat alternatives. The 2 big brands out of the US right now are, for example, Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger. They're selling to restaurants, they're selling to supermarkets, and the Asian market is growing very quickly with brands in Asia. I think it's a huge wave that's growing very, very quickly, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities for that. But it has a lot of considerations, environmental, health. There's ethical considerations, there's cost. So I think, to me personally, it's a very interesting area to consider.
Right. Now, one thing that a lot of companies struggle with, that I think it's important for us to point out, is that let's suppose that we are one of these companies, either Impossible Meat or Beyond Burger. Let's say that we are company C. We have another idea for plant-based protein. I think that sometimes people get a little bit stuck because they don't make the distinction between who is the end user of the market, which is eventually the person that will consume it, versus our actual customer. So if I am the one that is making the plant-based protein, who would my customer be?
Okay, so it would be either a restaurant chain, or supermarkets. Those will be our potential customers.
Okay, so let's say our customer, and then just in the interest of time, let's pick one of those. Let's go restaurant or
let's go for a supermarket. Supermarket.
All right.
Yeah.
So
let's do that.
Our buyer's journey. So our buyer is the supermarket.
The supermarket. Okay. So and then we will probably refine that further, because if we're thinking about this market, it will probably be maybe a higher end market, right? So that's kind of where we're probably headed, and we would do some research as to who's selling this and so on and so forth. So now I would certainly look to talk to supermarket owners, do some research on trends in supermarkets, so on and so forth. But let me just go through that first row. What is the customer thinking and feeling? So my supermarket.
Before you start,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sorry to interrupt. Before we start, so this is actually a shared document that we're collaborating on, and I can spy on people, and I can see that I'm in this document and Jose is in this document. So we can all go ahead and start editing. And what we also wanted to do very briefly was to make this into a collaborative exercise. And, we had previously agreed that Jose would take this first question. Semin would take the second question. Hassan would take the third question. Am I right? Was that what we had decided? And then I'll do the last one. So while Jose is describing his answers, Semin and Hassan, you guys can go ahead and also start filling in this grid, so people can see this grid getting filled up, and we can go through the entire slide, touching on the different points. So make sure that you come into the document, Semin, Hassan, and so Jose. So you guys filling that out, and then now back to you, Jose. So
Yep. All right. So
You-
here I am, and I'm thinking
Yours.
about my customer, and so on the awareness stage, my customer is thinking, you know what, this is a growing market. I should catch this. I should get this while it's kind of early, and I can be one of the early adopters, and maybe get some good deals, make some good relationships. That would be at the awareness stage, very early on. Then I'm going to jump into my evaluation, my consideration stage. I'm going to start looking as a restaurant. I'm sorry, as a supermarket owner, I'm going to be looking at, what is the price of these products? What's the quality? Does it taste good? I'm selling food. I want my customers to like food, and especially if it's a high-end supermarket. Good quality, tastes delicious. I like it myself. I taste it. I cook with it. And so who am I selling this to? I'm selling to younger people, older people, middle-aged people, the people that are, what's their socioeconomic status? What is their buying power? And then I'm going to decide at some point, after I do all this analysis, I'm going to decide. Now I'm saying because I'm the supermarket, right? I'm thinking as the supermarket owner. And my decision is going to be, quality. I want quality. That's going to be my primary consideration there. So let me see. So I entered quality for some reason. It didn't show up on the screen.
I can see it. Price, quality, demographic.
Yep. Not showing up on this screen here. But anyway, my decision stage, I'm going to opt for quality. Quality is going to be the main thing I'm trying to deliver for my customer, because it's a high-end demographic that I'm targeting in my supermarkets.
Okay. Oh, it might not be showing up because you might still be editing the cell, and you need to finish editing the cell. There we go.
There we go. Yep. There we go.
I can see it now. Now, one quick question that I want to ask you about this is, how has this current issue with the coronavirus affected what the customers are thinking and feeling? Do you think it has amplified, or do you think it has distracted away from this market?
Oh, it has definitely, at least from my perspective here in the United States, it has definitely amplified it. And you can see it even in the stock price for some of these companies. They're doing extremely well because there are problems with the meat supply here in the United States. And therefore, there is a shift in supply and in demand to alternatives. And this is literally an alternative, a meat alternative.
Right. One thing that I think is, kind of interesting about this is that there's an issue with this right now. And I think that as soon as, the immediate concerns around the virus happen, I think that the fact that it came from a wet market, and we were talking a little bit about how this is going to be important for the Asian markets, right? One of the reasons why China relies so much on the wet markets was because of a lack of a supply chain for protein. And you ended up with a lot of, people in a lot of regions relying on wildlife. And as the supply chain for food improves, we're going to realize that, traditional agriculture is just not enough. Cattle are a big contributor to greenhouse gases, and traditional farming is a big contributor to deforestation. And so I think that there's definitely the issue and the awareness around this that is happening right now. And I think that as time goes on, it's actually going to accelerate, like the need to have more sustainable sources of protein that don't rely either on wildlife or on agriculture as we know it today. So it's definitely going to be a growing market. Now let's go quickly into the customer's action. Semin, you've got a couple of cells filled in.
Yeah. Let me finish. Sorry, I can't speak and type at the same time. Okay, let me just go briefly over it. What is the customer's action? What are they doing? In the awareness stage, well, Jose mentioned that I need to catch this growing market, and for the customer, for the supermarket, he or she doesn't know if what's going on. So he might get some news information on the news. What is it compared to meat? What is this going on? He or she might also receive comments from customers. This usually happens when customers come into the store and ask, "Hey, hey Simon, do you have that new like Impossible meat that's coming in? Oh, that's going on the news. Do you happen to have that in stock?" So the action for the customer, supermarket owner, is to actually listen into those new comments, I would say. So hear about it in the news, receive comments. And the specific action is opening your ears to customer comments, going back to what we've been talking about. And then on the consideration stage, where what I was going to write is compare it with traditional meat. What is happening? What is it? Mario, you were mentioning while I was typing. What is it? What is happening? What is happening on the customer's preference? What is going on? Why is it getting popular? Comparing that to traditional meat, what is the price difference, and how is this new kind of meat solving this problem? So you would have a clear definition of, oh, should I get this new kind of meat in my store? Will it make a profit or not? This also, you also have to consider the demographics of your store. We were mentioning that this is a little bit of a high-end supermarket. If your customers are willing to pay a premium to these new kind of meat and new kind of food, definitely you would consider having this in your store. So that would be the action you would be taking. And then on the decision stage, you have to try it. It's food, so you have to definitely try it. You have to go to a restaurant that serves the new meat, or buy it in some other store that has this kind of meat. And then you also have to ask the distributor, do you have it? Your existing distributor, or you have to actually go and find a new distributor, or go to the company directly to actually get the stock in your store.
Right.
But some of the activities that the supermarket owner should take.
Very true. So now, Hassan, how about you? We look here that under the awareness stage, you've got what or where is the buyer researching, and you've got technology and brands.
Yeah. Can you see other things?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, and why customers are buying.
Yep.
Yeah.
And why customers
So
are buying.
So customers, so supermarkets are going to think about like what kind of brands or what kind of technologies there is and there are, and then why my customers are going to think about to buy those proteins. So at awareness stage, they're going to find out what is the options, and they're at the consideration stage, they're going to find some supply chains and how the prices are going, and then they're going to decision stage. They are going to find out like how the competitors, and then they're going to set the price, decide what kind of price am I going to sell to my customers. Then they're going to fix their option, I think. Yeah.
Right. And so as we continue filling these in, something that you notice is that the way that we are writing the text right now as we're doing this live is that we're using somewhat, like generic words that would probably be applicable to a lot of companies. But with your team, you can go and start, narrowing it down and revising this to be much, much more specific. So in my case, I was working a little bit on, and as Simon said, it's a little bit hard to be working on your own, thinking about what to say about it, and in my case, also trying to have a conversation with everybody. It's a three-way task. So when you're doing this with a team, you definitely want to set up some, a good 15 to 20 minutes in silence, right? Where people can take their time and work on it in parallel then you can compile them all together, and then you can have a brief overview with the entire team of all of the answers that you have. In this case, we just kind of like compressed it very quickly. I started working on the awareness stage, right? And I think that in general, I'm providing here a pattern that would probably be true for all companies, but during the awareness stage, you want to look at the previous answers that everybody else said, and you want to actually provide, so this is a growing market, don't just write about your product, provide you can be the source of information, you can be the authority on where the market is moving, not just for your specific product, but for the range of complementary products that go along with it. Then
I think maybe this is part of this idea that we really have to get away from this mindset of I win and you lose.
right.
A lot of people can win.
Exactly. A lot of people can win. And people have also found that it's important not just to guide your customer to buy from you. It's important to guide people who are not a good fit for your product. You know, you don't want to necessarily push them away, but you want to make sure that they are aware that it's not the right fit for them, and that they feel thankful to you that you help them find an option that actually works. In the future, they could come back, right? But more importantly, if the wrong customer buys from you, their expectations won't be met, and then they're going to start saying negative things about you. So it's a good idea to think not just how do I guide my customers, but how do I also make sure that people are fully aware of the other options that they have that could be better for them. And so then, Semin, in your case, you said Google about it. We can start thinking about what are the specific keywords, and then we've got to do our own search engine optimization so that we rank highly for those keywords. And if we don't have time to rank and we want a faster acceleration, then we could buy paid ads for those keywords as well. What or where is the buyer researching? So technology, brands, preferences. So what are they searching for while they're searching? Are there other brands that you think they could be searching for because they have a bigger name? If I want to go into this, engineered meat products, chances are that I should consider that many people will be aware of Beyond Burger and Impossible Meats. So maybe I want to write a little bit about them and make sure that when people are searching for those companies, that they arrive at my website as well, right? So we don't just want to be providing information on ourselves, and we want to and the last one is that we want to be publishing about these things frequently. So the two basic things that you can do to drive people towards you during the awareness stage are search engine optimization and posting on social media, right? Post engaging content. And these are the two very, very basic ways that people will be able to discover you during the consideration stage.
Oh, one thing, sorry, before you move on, a quick thing to add, especially in this case where Beyond Meat and Impossible Burger is a US-based company, and if the supermarket is based here locally in Seoul, in Korea, there's a lot of things to talk about in terms of preference in eating habits. So they are focused in burger patties to begin with. What's happening here in Korea? Maybe because people think, oh, there's a Korean style food that's going on, people will not like burgers. Well, people here really like burgers. So there's a lot of things to talk about in that sense as well. So putting in a little bit of a cultural thing, actually localizing your content to the market you're serving is a really important part that can serve your SEO and drive a lot of traffic into your site and content as well.
I've had some exchanges with our friend Hannah over at the about because she posts pictures on Instagram about her hamburgers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be, have you tried the plant-based stuff? So it's like I'm just waiting for her to try one, because we had somebody who came from Korea when she came to visit us, Diana, and we went to a vegan restaurant, and she had a vegan hamburger, and she loved it. She said, if this is vegan food, I can be vegan.
Right. And so definitely having the opportunity to try it and to share these stories, right? I think that that would be a great quote to share. Get a video of that, and put it on your website and put it on social media. If this is vegan, I'm for it, right?
Yep. Yep.
So
And and to Simon's point about localizing it, and there's plenty of companies now in Asia that are developing more Asian food style products. Like in Hong Kong, there's I think Green Monday is a company, you know, somebody who started, I think maybe 8 years ago or so, and people thought he was crazy. What, you're selling vegetarian, vegan products in Asia? Now he's doing great. And what's he focusing on? Dumplings, noodle soups. There you go.
um, so I'd like to finish this conversation with a couple of last thoughts, that, you know, Jose, you're bringing up, and I think that we need to clarify. So just quickly, over here for consideration and decision, once we've driven people into our own website, we want to capture their email, and we want to be doing email marketing and hosting online and offline events. Those are pretty standard things. And then for your website, to make sure that they decide with you, you want to be thinking about growth-driven design. And again, all of these we can, you know, over time, you can take this, you can make this exercise into like a full 90 minutes, and then you can revise it. You should be revising this with your whole company every, you know, if you're an early stage startup, every couple of weeks. And then over time, once it stabilizes, every quarter, definitely every year, to make sure that there's changes in trends. And Jose, this last point that you're bringing up, I think, brings up the very last point, which is, our customer was a supermarket, you know, so why are we talking about, you know, in this case, our friend Diana that was trying, you know, these vegan dishes when she visited Boston, and where it can get a little bit confusing, but it's has a lot of value, is that we have to consider not just our direct customer, who is the supermarket, but the supermarket has their own customers. And if you want to sell to a business, and I think this is where it is a difference between selling to consumers and selling to businesses, is that to consumers, you talk about it regarding the benefits to them directly. If you want to sell into a business, it's a really good idea to talk to them about the benefits of their end user. So I should tell a supermarket not just why they should buy from me, but I should help them understand and visualize how their customers will be happy when they come to the supermarket, because my option is on their shelves. And this is where Diana's story comes in. It's not just important, you know, it's not just like an interesting and curious story, but making sure that we convey that to the supermarket. So when you think about my customer's customer, which would be the shoppers, whoops, you can actually go ahead and fill this out as much as you can. And when you go and visit the supermarket to pitch to them your product, this is what should be the conversation. Not about what you want them to do in terms of buying from you, but what you could do to help them better service their customers. And so this is where selling to businesses does get a little bit more complicated sometimes, because you've got these two layers of storytelling, right? You got to understand the decision makers within the company and what are all of their concerns. And one of their concerns, which is not just their only concern, but one of their concerns is definitely going to be the decision making of the end users that could be shopping at their supermarket or other supermarkets, or you know, ordering food online even. Okay, so that's all the time that we have for today. And I think that this is a great exercise. This is a great tool that people can use. So we'll make sure to include these slides as well for people to be able to download and start working on the exercise. And if they want, they can always go back and download these templates from HubSpot, where they can have access to many more stages of the customer journey beyond just the you know, the specific buyer's journey, which is that kind of subset. So Jose, Simon, Hassan, thanks a lot for the session today. And we'll see you again next week.
Thank you, Mario.
Right.
All right.
See you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.